Hey, this is Tyler.
And this is K.C.
And you're listening to
the Element Podcast.
Well, hey there, girl. I bet you've heard that before. The way you sit right there, acting like you're so bored. What can I say?
Well, welcome to Corona. We've got cough and phlegm. Ain't got none of the deer you want, but we got all the got all the south winds.
It's all south winds.
All the south winds you could ever imagine, and the hot weather. Tyler,
Yeah.
where we live, and even some of the places that we hunt, I'm pretty sure aren't going to have a hard frost in the month of November. Right now. It's November 19th today, my anniversary. I've been reminded of that a few times. Actually, I had to remind my wife of that this week.
It's good.
She forgot the date.
Perfect.
I'm going to bring that up later.
Yep. Definitely.
But it's the hottest November I can remember. And hot in a couple ways because it's actually been pretty good for the Element crew in some situations. Some situations not, like we kind of were singing about a while ago. Our whole tribe, Tyler,
Got hot fevers.
got the Rona. So your whole family, like extended, not extended, I don't know what you call it, but like you, your wife, and your parents got it. Me and my wife and my kid got it. About half of my church congregation has it or has had it in the last 2 weeks.
We had a member pass away from it.
I know.
Yeah.
That's nuts, man.
I know.
But I don't know. It's been kind of wild, but it is what it is. From a personal standpoint, I was texting our good friend Cody yesterday, and he's just asking how we were doing. I was like, oh, man, not a big deal for us, you know. We all got over it pretty good, but it's from a deer hunter standpoint, it's a pretty tough time of year to get the corona. Like, I think you started having symptoms about November 6th. Isn't that right?
Well, it's actually the 8th, I think.
Was it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this thing's been going on since like February, and we decided to get it the first week of the rut.
Absolutely.
First week of November. Gosh, dude, like why?
I don't know. I don't know why, but that is the way it has worked, and we're going to work through it, and we're going to go kill some more deer. But
yeah.
What's cool is, before the Rona hit, us at least, had some pretty good weeks, man. I mean, you killed the Illinois deer, and that was in mid-late October, 23rd.
Yep.
And then we came back, did some hunting around the house a little bit, kind of regrouped, and decided that we were going to make a little swing. As our buddy Spurlock likes to say, they make swings in the turkey hunting. So, yeah, swing states for sure. There's still some swinging states out there right now. But we decided that we're going to kind of stick to our roots and spend the first part of our long rut trip in Texas.
Yep.
And try to make something happen in Texas and then swing on up, make the long drive north to Kansas and hunt there. So, what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about our Texas and Kansas experiences and talk about what's coming up here pretty quick. First off, if you haven't, go subscribe to our YouTube channel because November 19th, the evening of that, really cool video drops on YouTube that we're going to talk about here in just a second. Also, there's already the first video of that Texas trip is out on YouTube right now, and it's doing pretty good. So thank y'all for watching and sharing and liking and all that. I know, dude, it's freaking some dumb guy and a deer on a thumbnail. And
it's like, this is going to be one of our top videos ever, I think, and there's no kills in it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know, dude, it's nuts.
But it is a cool video.
I wish more people, like, we could just... actually, it's funny enough, YouTube actually has where you can do this, is put a card to tell people to go watch a different video. So I need to make sure that's on there. But anyways, our Texas trip. Sticking in the Lone Star State. One of the things, I've been thinking about this, one of the things about a hot November is that maybe in Iowa or Illinois, or those are interchangeable, but
they're the same. I don't know what you're talking about here. It's the same state.
Wisconsin, Minnesota, your upper Midwest states,
Missouri.
Missouri, even the lower ones, A hot November is a tough deal.
Yeah.
But honestly, in Texas, these deer are somewhat used to that.
These deer are some thin-skinned fools right here.
It's frosty and they'd stop moving. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like straight up, you and I were talking about this. We don't get the whole, he came in before shooting light. And after shooting light sometimes, but like, I don't know what it is, but it's almost like it's too cold at night for them to move around too much. So they kind of wait until, sunrise to get out. But
they're baby deer, man.
The point I'm making is that it would seem that we had a tale of two states, and the Texas deer seem to be just doing Texas stuff. Mm-hmm. So the way we formatted our trip was we kind of plotted a route, knew where some WMAs were that we might be able to hunt, but we wanted to kind of drive around, truck scout, see if there was something worth sticking around for, and I mean, end up somewhere on an evening that you can hunt, and then kind of make some inferences from that and go from there. Mm-hmm. So we headed out on the road, made sure and stopped and got us some Taco Bell because that is the way you do things. We are not paid by them to say that. We just love them so much.
I wish we were, though.
I know. I know it, man. That's the real sponsorship we're after. So if you know anybody in the Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC franchise, dude, talk about a freaking heavy hitter. Long John Silver's is the Achilles heel in that whole quartet there.
Can't remember the last time I ate at LJS.
The only time I have is whenever it happens to be in conjunction with a Taco Bell, and I stay away from the L's on the
and
menu.
I'm 9 years old.
That's right. So we drove by a few WMAs, and then didn't see a whole lot that we thought we could hunt successfully, at least, and ended up at one place for an evening and decided we would get out and maybe hang a trail camera and do an evening hunt there. And really kind of had a little bit of a lackluster first evening. It was warm. You saw a buck and a doe real close. I saw a doe at last light, and I was cowed up. There's cows everywhere. But hung that trail camera, and it's once you get to a place, you kind of start to like a place. You know what I mean? I do this a whole lot. Like, I have big intentions of jumping around and going all over the place, and then you get somewhere and you start to like just accumulate a little bit of data or whatever. You say data or data?
I think I say data usually.
Do you?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know which way is right.
Same thing, yeah.
I'm the same way. Like you figure something out.
Yeah, it's hard to walk off, even if you haven't figured out much. It's kind of the whole don't leave fish to find fish thing, but it's almost like don't leave fish that you just see on the depth finder to go find fish. You know what I mean? Like you haven't actually.
You're not catching them.
Yeah, you haven't caught anything yet, but you're just like, man, this is just good. I'm learning some stuff. So what we ended up doing is sticking around, and we hunted the next morning, saw a few things. What did we see that next morning? I don't really remember.
I can't remember. I know there was a lot of cows in the mix.
There was a lot of cows in the mix, but we ended up checking the trail camera midday, and there were some promising bucks on that trail camera, and that's kind of what was the catalyst for us saying, okay, this is worth sticking around for, right? It was a little bit different country than we're used to hunting, much more like grassland type stuff, and was a little bit difficult to, find good trees to hang in and that sort of thing, but we kind of made it work. But from there on, the stuff kind of heated up pretty good.
For sure. I mean, it was 80 degrees, so things were hot.
That's right.
I know, that was for us on that trip. Like the one thing I was noticing in those first couple of hunts is, like you said, this area was kind of marshy or whatever, had a lot of grass in it and stuff. And I was set up in a pinch between these two kind of marshes or these sloughs or whatever. And what I noticed with it being 80 degrees is that the movement was very much on the very ends of the day, And so like on the evenings especially, like I was in a great spot, but it was just not cold enough to like encourage movement pre-sunset. So I had about a 30-minute window, and I was just like I was getting in the stand at like 4:30, just like, whatever, I mean, not going to see them till the sun goes down anyway. So anyway, and then being that it's one of those hot south wind days in November, you knew that also the wind was going to die right at dark pretty much, and you're going to be sitting there. And so like for me, I'm hunting this area. I'm hunting a willow tree of sorts, and it's like, you know, if I move once that wind dies, the whole willow shakes, you know.
And willows have this uncanny ability to have these young of the year limbs, they call them scions, that grow really tight together. So when you move, not only does the tree shake, but it makes noise. Yeah, all those limbs go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, you know, I guess where I set up, I noticed that it was not, like it was a killing place for sure, but I think I needed, I started to figure out, I was like, I need a little bit more, I need to get further into this property or just more visual seclusion from different human activities and stuff, you know, or whatever it might be, and just get closer to bedding, essentially.
Didn't you see a buck, though? And that kind of made you want to go do that?
So, yeah, the third day that morning, I early on saw a buck.
And he
looked like a shooter. I mean,
he was in there eating.
He was eating persimmons.
Persimmons.
Yep.
Y'all have heard us preach persimmons here on the podcast.
The persimmon britches.
It's the real deal, man.
Yeah.
If you live in a place where there are persimmons and they're dropping, now what's funny is they drop at all different times of the year. There's not like the last week of October is persimmon time. Tyler and I have properties that are 8 miles apart, probably something like that. Yeah. And the discrepancies,
maybe not even that.
Maybe not that. Who knows?
Straight line.
Yeah. But we're looking at a tree that has probably close to 1,000 persimmons on it from your place, just out the window right now, and they're holding tight. You saw does eating them today. All my persimmons dropped October 3rd.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of crazy. It's cool because you can go find them ready in a lot of places at a lot of times of the year. But at the same time, you can't just bet on like, oh, I'm going to go hunt persimmons at this property. You take some boot scouting, some observation and stuff like that, and that's kind of exactly what you did with that buck.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. I was one of the things that I liked about that tree is I was able to see, like I had the potential to see a lot of country, but I figured out also that I couldn't get very high in this tree, and with that kind of grassland habitat and the persimmon trees and all these little, you know, types of shrubbery and stuff, it was actually a little more difficult to, and then also my backside had all those little scions that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't really see as much as I wanted to.
Nothing like a backside scion to get you down.
Dadgummit, man.
Yeah.
It's bad news.
And you were pretty skylit right there too, right? Like
I thought you were going to say pretty.
No. It's kind of like, there's adjectives that we use that are just always funny. You like that one whenever people say big. I like that one a lot.
Big
you
hunter.
used... I guess, I guess that's subject. I don't know. Anyways, you said high a while ago. I always like to think like of jokes that pertain to high. Those are fun. So anyways, maybe we need to increase our vernacular. I don't know, dude. Donald Trump's done pretty good for himself, and he has a pretty small vocabulary. So
He does.
and that's okay. He knows how to bigly convey things to people.
He does.
You know?
He's pretty good.
So, yeah.
So anyway, I couldn't see very well as I would have liked to from that particular location. So, but I did see within probably like about 100 yards or right at 100 yards or so, I saw a buck real early one morning working through these persimmons, got a quick glance. And here's the thing about videoing your hunt and why you shouldn't start doing it if you're a listener is that...
Didn't we do the last podcast?
Did we? We might have.
We told people how to video their hunts.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did. It's been so long, I can't even remember. But no, so when you video your hunt, the first thing that you're supposed to do when you see a deer is get video footage of it. So that you don't just have a video with no deer in it.
Yeah, but you're just like, I saw that buck, and they're like, what buck?
They're like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I can say that too. Which we know some people who do that. But anyway.
Nothing like creating a little hype, man.
Yeah, for real. So, you know, but I prefer not to just have footage of blue jays chatting and pretend like there are deer around because of it. So Anyway,
I got some good B-roll of the blue jay the other day just to prove that one wrong. I ain't seen a deer all hunt. Look at these blue jays dancing on my tree.
So the thing about what makes videoing not an effective way of hunting is that, like, I see this deer, and this is the example. This is one example, but this happens a lot. I see this buck. I put my binos up to look at him because I want to see what it is right off the bat before he gets out. So I see that it's a buck. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was a buck until I put my binos up. I see him move his head through the persimmons, like, oh, dang, I mean, that's a good buck. Put my binos down, immediately get the camera rolling, get the settings right, make sure that the lighting's good and everything, which I'm pretty quick at. And as soon as I get it all set and get it pointed in the right direction, I look up to see where he's at and get him framed, and he's gone. And it's like, dude, I have no clue what that buck just did, where he went, what was going on. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that happened, I noticed several times on this trip where I would, like, be getting the camera set up quickly, and I would lose sight of the deer, and now I have no clue. Like, I'm missing a huge chunk of the puzzle. You know what I mean? For me, like, that just, you're missing parts of the puzzle that make it more difficult to get on the deer later.
Let me give you the opposite of that. Okay. That way people aren't so discouraged about filming their hunts.
I think I know where you're going.
The night before this happened, I actually saw a shooter. I don't know, we just kind of jumped ahead, but sorry. Had a pretty good hunt, saw quite a few deer, and at last light I saw a shooter. I just threw my camera on, got all the stuff right, like you said, and pointed it in the direction of where that deer was. He's pretty far away, and I went to rattling and try to get his attention. Well, I didn't get him to come over, and I really didn't think I had him on camera or on footage, and then we got back and put him on your computer, or put the SD card in your computer, and we actually have footage of that deer.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. That was like a good thing about videoing your hunt there, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, you can learn stuff from the footage for sure too.
Oh yeah, it's we talked about this on this trip. Like, your mind fills in the blanks a whole lot when you're hunting. Mm-hmm. Like, things don't happen the way you think you remember that they do. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like where you shoot a deer, or where it was standing, or whatever, how big it was, how little it was, all that kind of stuff. How many does there were? How many times you'd be like, well, there's like 3 or 5 does. I don't really remember, you don't really know that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the camera helps you with that. But I would say that more often than not, it's your scenario than it is the beneficial side. It just so happens that there's pluses to it for sure.
Yeah, it's for sure. I'm kind of saying it tongue in cheek a little bit, but it definitely adds another element that's not it can make it difficult. We don't need no more elements right now. Oh, we got too many elements.
We do.
So anyway, this I didn't know what happened to this buck. So it's one of those mornings where warm days, kind of quiet because the wind hadn't picked up yet in the morning. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to lightly rattle, and this deer's going to come right to me. It's going to be money. So I get the camera set up, get the GoPro rolling, and get my rattle bag, which is top notch. And I start hitting it. And I couldn't tell if I was rattling icicles or if it was actually like supposed to be like antlers or what. It's not the most realistic sounding bag that I have.
Weird. I feel like people in the Midwest use those things a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And to me, it sounds like kind of like antlers a little bit, but
I hadn't rattled anything in yet with it. I rattled a little bit with it.
Of course, I've used real antlers a lot the past week and haven't rattled anything in either.
Yeah.
So.
No, last year I didn't either. Yeah. Honestly, calling the last year and a half has been pretty terrible for me. But anyway, so I rattled a little bit real lightly, just kind of did the whole, like, I'm 2 little bucks sparring over here,
Yeah.
And then, just, I'm always hesitant. I think people tend to move a little too much sometimes after they rattle because it's like, that thing could be looking right at you, So it always scared me. So I was real calm, real quiet, and still after that for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And all of a sudden I start hearing something walking towards me, and I'm like, he's coming. And it's tall grass, so like he's definitely could be at like 30 yards and I don't know it. So I've got my bow, and everything. Starts working in, and after sitting there a few minutes listening to this thing getting closer, I see something move, and it's cows. And I'm like, dadgummit.
It drives you nuts.
Yeah, the cows were in there. And so, long story short, I ended up thinking, well, I'm going to move this evening, try to get away from this group of cows, which they kind of cut my hunt short that morning. I left out pretty early because they were surrounding me.
Yeah, and then you sent them to me, I think, when you left out.
That's what I was trying to do, yeah. And so they, though I thought, well, I'll move away from these cows a little bit. I'll go towards that deer. And ended up, and I mean, are we kind of at the point where I need to just tell the story, I guess?
I think so.
That evening I go back in, I pull all my stuff out of that tree, and I'm going to move, my plan's to move about 120 yards or so maybe, and get into a lone tree, like cottonwood tree in the middle of these persimmons. And so I go over there, and immediately I just picked this tree out on the map and in person when I was sitting there that morning. And I was like, that's where their buck, kind of was coming from or whatever. And so I go up to the tree, and my first stick won't fit around this tree. And I'm like, dadgummit, man. Ends up, that was like, so I'm going to get a little bit spiritual on this podcast. So this is how I saw things throughout the rest of the evening. And this is how I truly believe. And so this is, it's got a lot of references, I guess. So, but just forewarning you there a little bit. So anyway, turns out that it was a good idea or a good thing that I couldn't get my tree stip around there, because I was going to just hop up this tree and hunt right there without thinking too much about it. But once I couldn't make that tree work, I had to actually think a little harder. I'm really like always hesitant to just like in the evening, just go into some thick stuff and just start scouting around. Mm-hmm. Like I don't want to do that if I can't help it. So anyway, I ended up kind of forced into it. And so I'm like, okay, I need to stay away from like brush piles and things that might have shade and bedding cover, and try to stay more in these kind of persimmons and some of the open grass stuff as I'm working towards this other cottonwood that's probably another 100 yards or so maybe from that one, in the further direction from where I was set up that morning. And so end up heading over to that other cottonwood, and when I get there, my tree stick fits around.
Yay!
And B, I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, all the persimmons are right here. This is where the majority of the persimmons are. Like this makes so much more sense.
The fruits?
The fruits, yes, because there are groves that aren't producing either, whether they're female or not, or they're just
different time.
They just didn't produce this year or whatever. They're just not producing this year. So, like the main, probably like 3 to 4 groups of heavy producers were right around this tree. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I kept going here and didn't, do something dumb or that I wasn't able to get that stick around that tree. So anyway, I start heading up in this tree, and the wind is not ideal, but it's okay. And so the snake is cracking me up right now.
I have a child's toy snake in my hand the whole podcast, so just so you know. Tyler's pretty creeped out by snakes anyway, so
yeah.
It's a good toy.
But anyway, so I start working up this tree, and like I said, the wind is not ideal for me today, but I know like in the morning it's going to be like primo. And so this is, I was telling our friend Tony the other day on a podcast with him, this is where like when you get out into what people call the air quotes grind, when you're, trying hard, you're getting up early, you kind of get this mental fatigue and this burn going, you do some dumb stuff.
Yes.
And so the dumb thing that I did was go, man, I'm just going to set up it's a little bit lazy, but it's also like maybe better hunting as well, because you're not making as much noise on 2 occasions by setting a stand twice. But I'm like, I'm just going to set up on the side of the tree for the morning hunt. That best places me for the morning hunt, because the wind's going to be ideal, and sun's going to be coming over here, blah blah blah.
Better movement in the morning because you get a longer period of cool weather.
It's cool weather, yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, I'm going to set up, and so I end up setting on the sunny side of the tree. I'm talking bright sun on a tree with like the only limbs are like the size of your pinky, and there's a bunch of those right around the base of the tree, but there's no really like cover in this tree. And so I'm just going to get up as high as I can, which is probably like 14, 15 feet, and sit on the sunny side of this tree. And if I have to make something happen tonight, I'll make it happen. But really, I'm setting up for shots in the morning. So I go up this tree, I get set, and I'm talking, I literally get everything completely set, and I'm going to do an interview. And I look up, I hear something, I look up, and at like 45 yards is a doe coming straight to the persimmons. And I'm like, and it's obviously coming, on my off shoulder, my right shoulder, because I'm an idiot.
If you're saddle hunting, if you haven't done this, it's kind of tough to shoot to one side, especially as you rotate around. Like, if you got a average size tree, like the tree you were in probably is, 18, 20 inches in diameter or something like that, you can shoot on the right side of that pretty easily, but as you continue to turn to your right side, it gets real tough.
Yeah, it's like being a ballerina.
Yeah. So you want to set up, like you were saying,
Shots
with your
to your
platform,
left.
with your platform facing the tree like it always does. You face the tree, and all your shots kind of be on that. Really, I don't know, about 180 degrees to your left. It's pretty easy to shoot.
Yeah. And so I have this doe coming in on my right, and I'm like, maybe she's just kind of an outlier, hopefully. But either way, it's cool.
It's November 3rd. Maybe she's an outlier. Maybe it's not a big deal.
So she ends up coming in to like 25 yards and just, poking around, eating persimmons, and just pretty early, And maybe even, I think she even came a little closer than that. And then finally she kind of wanders off and leaves. And I'm sitting there, sunny side of the tree, my back's to the sun. And all of a sudden, it's getting pretty golden, and I hear running full throttle, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what is happening?" So I turn around. Of course, it's coming behind me, Of course. And I turn around, and there is probably the biggest deer definitely the biggest deer I've seen on Texas public land in person, not with a trail camera, but in person. Flying right behind a doe. I'm talking they are running full speed, like as fast as deer can run. And I'm almost thinking because you were in that direction, and I'm almost thinking did K.C. spook them or something, or shoot one or what? And then I realized pretty quickly he's actually dogging the doe. And this deer is a 10 point that's probably 18 inches wide. He's real wide, and they fly in, do this semicircle, and I'm freaking out. It's all I can do to get the GoPro on, and they're in my lap, And so they fly in. The doe stops at 40 yards, right under some persimmons, and the buck stops probably 40 yards behind her. And so it gives me enough time because they're taking a good long break and not doing a whole lot to slowly get the other camera rolling and get it kind of pointed. It's behind my back. Everything is a clown show at this point, And so
the other tough thing about saddles is if you do self-film, there's one side that you're going to be pretty good at getting some video of, and the other side it's real tough.
It's terrible.
Yeah, getting that thing underneath your bridge, where you connect to the tree, is hard.
Yep. It was
okay. Another little. I don't mean to interrupt you, but play-by-play color commentary. You know what I mean?
Perfect.
Okay, so on that note, do not, whatever you do, if you're the guy who's self-filming, do not set your camera base, the thing that attaches to the tree, pointed directly at you, because that limits the amount of space you have the most to get that camera around. You want to just put it 90 degrees from you on one side of the tree and just say, okay, I'm going to film real good to that side, and then if you get it around there far enough, your two-piece camera arm becomes a one-piece, and it's pretty easy to maneuver on the other side of the tree.
Yeah, 100%. That's how I set up last night and got some really good footage. 90 degrees on the right.
Yeah.
And, smaller tree. But even on a big tree, like you said, you can get around and get pretty much any angle on that stuff. So, but anyway, so I get it kind of worked out or whatever. And the whole time I'm freaking out because I know at any moment this deer could just bust out and take off again, and I'm going to have to make a quick shot. So I'm got my camera set up, and now it's I don't know any of these ranges on this side. This is not where I was planning on shooting.
Yeah.
It's pretty much straight behind me, maybe just on the left side, so it's not a terrible shot. position. So I get my rangefinder and I'm like trying to like get ranges. This doe is at 35 yards now, wide open. She's pretty preoccupied with the guy that was chasing her, but like he's pretty much just being still and like rubbing his tree or rubbing on persimmon trees and doing his buck things, you know. And so like I'm getting some ranges best I can. That rangefinder, I'm basically looking west at this point. And so with looking into the sun, my rangefinder is just, it's the cheapest of the cheap. And I'm thankful to have one, but I can't get great ranges, I feel like.
And by this point in the season, it's already pretty a dusty, dirty dog, too.
Yeah.
You know, that dust on that makes it real hard to see.
I need to probably clean that out pretty good. I've tried, but I need to like get after it with a Q-tip or something, which I might do here in a second. But so I get the best range that I can get, and she goes through at like 35, and then finally the buck kind of picks up the pace a little bit, and he comes in, and I've got this all on video, man, and he comes in right where she was pretty much, but he's a little bit further. I didn't realize until, you know, well, actually I did realize, I guess, but I guessed him for 40. And it turns out that he was at 37, and, you know, the further the distance is, the further your arrow is going to drop per yard. So at that range, I don't think it was, I think that I misjudged it, and that affected the outcome of the shot a little bit. But I think ultimately, I just made a bad shot. Like I think that it was a bad enough shot that 3 yards difference hurt me enough to where, you know, it wasn't lethal. And so I shoot over this deer's back is what I do. And
barely though, right? It's like
yeah. Dude, you want to talk about the worst feeling. Like I wanted to cry so bad.
I told you after it happened, I said, Tyler, I understand. January 2019, I did the same thing on a spike. So if you could feel worse, I don't know if you could or not, because that was a big deer to miss. When you miss the tiniest, it also makes you feel real dumb too.
You feel very inept at that point.
That's right.
So yeah, I shoot over this deer's back, and at this point, I'm like, you know, this is my one chance to shoot a Texas public land buck,
dude. Like, that doesn't happen. You don't get those type of opportunities, man.
No, dude. And you know, to come busting in on me like that, it just frustrated me because everything was so dadgum difficult with filming and everything, and I just missed, you know, an 18-inch 18-inch wide 10 point at, you know, 37 yards, and you know, I you can see it in my face on the video, which the video is going to release tonight if you're listening the first day this drops. I didn't feel like I was going to cry, like in actuality, but if you look at my face, it looks like I'm crying. I mean, my face is torn up, dude. Like it's the weirdest thing to look at myself that way, and to know that I really wasn't feeling like I truly was going to cry. I was pretty sick, and that came through so hard that like it looks like I'm crying.
Yeah.
And I actually did cry in this video, just so you know, but not at this moment. So, anyway, the deer takes off and goes out there, and you can see me like getting ready to glass him, but he's looking back, and then all of a sudden he just blows, and at that point, you know, like it is game over, you know. And so I glassed him, you know, and all the way out, and just texted K.C. like I just missed a giant. You know?
Did you text me that?
I think I did.
I can't remember that.
Yeah,
I was wondering if maybe you just went silent on me on that.
I may have said it differently, like in a more negative, passive way of saying like, "Hey, there's a giant heading across the plains right now," or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that happens. The doe and the buck are gone. And I'm thinking I missed my one chance here. Doesn't happen again. And I'm just an idiot, you know. And I don't know. It probably was 15 minutes later. And I'm just kind of like starting to process this and cope with it and everything. And I look back down to my kind of behind and right direction, you know, the worst direction. And
the break your neck direction.
Yeah. And like 150 yards, maybe, there's a deer standing right beside this brush pile, like just got out of its bed.
What's he doing over there?
I don't know if it's a he at this point, but I put my binos up, and it turns out to be another huge, what I think is a 10 point. big buck, and I'm like, I can see a G4 for sure on one side, and I think so. I'm pretty good at not locking in on the antlers.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I see that it's a shooter, I'm really good at. I've picked this up this year about myself, but I can focus on the deer's body language and trying to make the right moves and move when I need to and don't move when I don't, because I'm watching the deer's body as opposed to like, oh my gosh, how big is he and what's he going to score, whatever. I'm just like, shooter, okay, now let's get him shot, And so, long story short, this deer comes in over the next 15 to 20 minutes just raking bushes and taking forever. I mean, it's just a mature buck that just got out of his bed and on a hot day and is not looking to move too far, and he's just taking forever,
lollygagging,
dude. And so I've got pigs coming in because this place is pig infested, being marshy, and these pigs are coming in kind of at a perpendicular rate towards the persimmons that the buck is coming towards the persimmons.
We're having a very similar experience in the evening right
Yes.
now, too. We'll talk more about mine, but same kind of things going on.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, dude, these things are going to beat him to the persimmons, and they're going to cut him off, and this is even more terrible, And so he takes forever and ever, and I'm like, I'm trying to hurry him up in front of the pigs, and then I'm also worried about shooting light because it's starting to get real dark. I'm keeping an eye on the time and everything, and so I'm like grunting at him and stuff. This dude doesn't react one time to a grunt. I grunted at him at 45 yards, and he didn't react. And I think with the pigs around, he just thought it was another pig or something.
Yeah.
It's a very similar sound, especially with my junky grunt call. But anyway, so he just doesn't react at all. I tried him like twice, and I didn't want to, and so like I was kind of. Like once I did it and it didn't work, I was just like, it's just going to be what it's going to be. I didn't try anymore necessarily. Well, long story short, he comes all the way into 20. Okay, so it's so dark that my rangefinder is not going to, like I can't even see through it really.
Yeah.
So he gets to like this closest persimmon grove, and he's right like on the outskirt of it, kind of come in my direction still a little bit. He's in bow range, but I don't know how far he is. And so I'm like, how do I get a range on this deer? And I look down, and there's a piece of white, dead wood, a branch. And I'm like, I need to range that because I can see that through my rangefinder. And so I like look around. It takes forever. I finally find it, and I'm like, I range it, and I can see it says 12 yards. And I pull my rangefinder down and look. I'm like, okay, he's 24 to 25 right now. He's double that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that gave me a good. That was the only way I was able to get a range on him. So he comes down. All of a sudden, kind of picks up the pace. He comes down a couple more steps, and then starts to kind of walk away and perpendicular towards kind of the hogs. And I'm like, dadgummit, I don't know, but I think 30. It's going to be close to 30, close enough, And at 30, I think I've got some room for error there. And I had been praying like half of the time that he walked in, just randomly, but not praying necessarily for success, but just praying that I do the right thing, and that if I do get a shot, that it's an ethical shot. You know what I mean? Like not some junky shot like I made at 37 yards earlier, And so I draw back, and I had to mack him like 5 times to get him to stop. Apparently this deer was deaf, and I
There's
finally
good GoPro footage of that too.
Oh yeah, it's mack. I sound like a gadwall, whatever. Anyway, he finally stops, and you can see me kind of take like a split second, and I was talking to myself a little bit like, okay, you rushed the last shot, no doubt about it. Make this one good. And you can see me like almost physically take like that extra breath, and I lock in, dude, pull the trigger. And it's kind of to the south. And if you've ever hunted on a clear day and looked into the south or the southwest, it is hard to see that time of day. Mm-hmm. So the arrow looks like it's going good, but I'm not 100% sure. And it sounds good, hits, He takes off, and immediately this dude is like stumbling, and I'm like, oh, this is good. He goes out there like 40 yards, just kind of struggling through the grass, and then stops and starts coughing, and I'm like, game over, dude. And then he takes off running again, but he's like really stumbling this time for like 10 yards, and then just piles up. And like at that moment, with all the emotions, and this is like such a cliche, but like the roller coaster, the true roller coaster of emotions of just like the last hour in that hunt, and what it meant to me to be able to shoot a big deer on Texas public. And you know how much we've put into that over the last several years, you know, and to see him go down, and like, I just could not help but think like, I literally was just a puppet. I was just like, God just did it for me, dude. Like 100%, you know? And like, I just break down crying at that moment, like laughing and crying at the same time, because I'm so happy. But like, I also can like feel the presence of God just like completely, like, it was, I mean, dude, I'll be honest, like 30 yards, it was, you can see me check my phone on video and go, it is the minute of shooting light in the post interview. So I literally shot him like 3 minutes ahead of shooting light, and being that dark and everything, and that hard to shoot, and not being able to get a range, and just like everything, like I just literally felt like I was just completely, like everything that I did was through like God working through me, basically. And I just like immediately was just like, glory to God. Like, there's no question that like I was just being led to success right there. And it was pretty awesome moment for sure, that I was able to have kind of, which this is something, you know, like ideally we have a guy in a tree filming for us, and it makes things so much easier and better for the viewer. But sometimes like being in a tree stand alone, there's some good things to that too.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like that moment for me to just like freak out on my own, and to focus on God as opposed to focus on like, hey, let's high five, you know?
Yeah.
I love that part. Jack and I have had a couple of really fun times doing that, you know what I mean? But I think having a little bit of the self-film thing where you get to really reflect and think about what has been done for you and everything is like a cool moment as well.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's a lot different than the lone wolf side of things. And I'm not saying the brand, but just like the whole like
mentality.
Yeah, mentality of that. Of guys who are like, I did it.
Yeah.
It's just me. That's not at all what you're saying.
No. Yeah, just more being able to reflect on like what has been done for you, the blessings that you have in your life, not just in that moment, but obviously in that,
I had the same
on that
thing
high, you
in
know?
South Dakota, and I didn't end up even shooting that deer, but it was like, I shot that deer, and the first thing I thought about was like how blessed I am in all the other things I have in life. That was a strange experience. But
it is, man.
I'm glad that we both have it.
Man, here's the thing: is like if you're an outdoorsman, like you just can't deny the spiritual aspect of being outside. Man.
Oh yeah, man.
Like it's just, you know, I don't think it matters who you are, man. Like you have to be thinking about like how did we get here, and like what are we doing here, and like just the things that it does for your spirit to be out in the woods, and just it gives you like this just refreshness that we like to talk about. But you know what I mean? Like it really does. It refreshes you. It replenishes like just drive and like the energy and the love for everything that is just natural in this world. You know what I mean? That has been naturally created. So I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I was thinking in that moment. But the video is going to release tonight. You know the story now, but it's definitely cool to watch on video.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Dude, who doesn't like a video of a big deer?
Man, and there's a lot of footage of him coming in.
I'm looking forward to it, man, because I didn't really get to watch a bunch of that whenever we were on this hunt. Because after that, it was like, okay, KC.
Yeah,
go kill it. Go try to kill a deer.
Go kill a pig.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the recovery to that. I mean, we got some footage and stuff. You know, I kind of went and played cameraman for you for a little while, and it was actually really funny because you knew the deer was dead, and you had texted me BBD, but we got there and we could not find the blood, and I think that you had a hard time marking him and stuff, like whenever because it got so dark so quick and everything. So I've done this before where you're like, you kind of have confidence, like, oh, he's dead, we're just going to go find him.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, where is he?
Yeah.
But we're talking about this, and we're like kind of scheming. We've been walking around for like 10 minutes, probably 15 minutes, looking for blood trail, looking for where the deer was. We already went back and kind of retraced our steps. I'm like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm like, I can't remember exactly how it went, but I pretty much turned around to use the bathroom. I peed right there, and then I said, okay, let's do this, and then we'll go back and restart our steps. And you took 2 steps and nearly stepped on him.
Dude,
we were standing beside him for like 10 minutes or something, you know. It was like ridiculous.
We both jumped almost out of our shoes.
It was nuts, man. But
Dude, actually, it was kind of a difficult thing to video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, full transparency, guys, we have had the worst mic issues this year.
Yeah.
Our microphones and our jacks on both of our cameras have been
jack issues always.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like we bought a new camera this year too, and now both cameras have mic issues.
Yeah. So basically what my point is we did this big like interview with the deer behind the deer at the very end once we got him back kind of to the truck, and there's no audio of it.
And normally, like, if one of the guys would be there to monitor that audio and see, like, oh, we can't do this. Well, we both wanted to be in the interview because we were both on the hunt, and it's a lot of fun to do that kind of stuff together. Well, then I set the camera up, I'm like, oh, it's working, and then I walk over and it's not working.
Yeah, just white noise.
Yeah.
So really cool. But I guess that saying that to say when we first recovered the deer, the day 6 did such a number on him that there was like there was like a sixth of the deer covered in red. I mean, on that one side, like
he was very dead.
Basically, the shot entered like I think you said like back 2 ribs or something like that.
Yeah, there was 2 bones behind it.
2 rib bones behind it.
There's no way to control this, but your broadhead slipped through as opposed to hitting.
Yeah.
You know, any bone. It was what am I trying to say? It was up and down, vertical. There we go. I kept on thinking perpendicular, and I was like, "That's not the right word."
You're sitting here with a shark fin. I'm like,
right.
Vertical.
Yeah, it was vertical.
Yeah.
So it just right through the meat.
Yeah,
right?
and then it exited in the golden triangle.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like in front of the elbow, but not into the scapula yet.
Yeah.
Like just
ripped. Another sign, dude, for real. Like, because I honestly I was aiming about 4 inches ahead of that, but where it came out, like if I'd have hit where I wanted to aim, it would have probably buried up in the off shoulder and still dead deer, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it like ripped, dude. Freaking got heart, got lungs. Like that was the best heart shot I've made on a deer with a broadhead.
It was a neat heart shot because you didn't pierce the heart, you sliced one side of it. So like that's like a huge gash.
Yeah,
which you can't like aim for that shot, but it just was real cool.
It was.
And then we could never find the arrow because it blew through that sucker, and who knows where it went.
That's the thing, man. Is like if you're in grassland habitat with those day 6s, you're gonna have to hope you can get some daylight. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or shoot them real close. That way it's down.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So
out there at that 30 yards, it's pretty flat trajectory. Like that arrow could end up 10 yards beyond where you shot him, and it was like, we don't really know exactly where you shot him at. So who knows?
So the foot he walks out of the frame right before I shoot him. So he's not actually in the frame. But there's GoPro footage of it, like we've been salvaging.
Welcome
all
to
year.
Self-filming, guys. Get over it, right? But,
but man, it was it was definitely very bloody, and so we're like, how do we not get kicked off of YouTube for showing this? And since we don't have an interview wrap up, like luckily K.C. did a good job with getting a bunch of shots of the deer and to pack out and everything.
My principle is just roll.
Just
take a bunch of footage. There'll be something good in there. That's kind of how I do that type of stuff, and it works pretty good. So that was awesome. I had a pretty good hunt that night too. Yeah, and
we almost killed $3 in one afternoon because of my shooting.
Yeah, maybe almost 4 because I was about mad enough at one of them to just shoot him just for spite. But so while this is going on, I see a giant 6-point get out of his bed at like 400 yards, and I clacked him with the antlers and got him to come in pretty much. And I'm going to kind of shorten this a little bit just because I didn't end up killing the deer, so it's no reason. I'm not like some of our other friends who tell you all kinds of details about things. But no, that makes for good storytellers, though. So sometimes it's good. But anyways, I rattled this deer in from a long way off. He does the same thing, lollygags his way in, just rubbing on stuff, just being a big old buck. You know, he's hot, doesn't want to run at that antlers. Well, I need to back up. I had a 7-point come through earlier. There was a 3-year-old who I passed and let him go on. And actually ended up
Didn't know
walking.
if he would make 13 inches or not.
Yeah, I
right?
didn't know if he'd make the width restriction, and I don't know. Yeah, that pretty much was it, because I was going to shoot whatever I could that was legal at that point in time. And really still, but yeah, I let him go. Which I say pass. I had him like 35 yards and didn't try to kill him.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever you want to call that. You know, some people say they pass deer when they're like 90 yards away.
Yeah, that's
with a bow.
It's an interesting thing. I talked about that with our buddy Tony the other day.
Yeah.
It's like, did you get your feet squared around on the platform? You know, because that's part of it too.
Did you have your bow in your hand?
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But anyways.
But you weren't going to shoot him.
No, I was not going to shoot this deer.
Yeah.
I made the decision quite early on in the encounter, and he was still around for 2 minutes later. So whatever you want to call it. Anyways, let him go. And then I do the whole thing, see that big buck get up about 15 minutes later, and rattle him and get him coming. And then whenever he gets to about, 80 yards away, the 7-point reappears right over here on my left side where I could smoke him. And then he works his way into about, I think, like 13 yards away, directly downwind.
You know they're close when they show up on the GoPro pretty good.
Yes, that's right. I think I actually pointed at this thing over my shoulder without seeing him in the GoPro footage. Yeah. So, he's in the GoPro footage, and he stays there forever. And finally, he was already kind of spooking, and then I moved to try to get the camera on the other buck, and he just got real weird and ended up snorting. Well, the other buck doesn't spook, but at that point in time, it goes from, well, I'm going to go find these deer that are fighting to like, what's really going on over here?
Yeah. So
he just stalls out at like 60 yards. I ranged him one time. He's at like 65. I could have ripped. He was such a good, and that's just too far on a whitetail for me. But anyways, he's just stalling out here in these persimmons, not eating, not doing anything. And then here comes the pigs. I see them like 150 yards off. They're headed my way. I was like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. And they end up coming to the base of my tree, like absolutely nearly rubbing their backs on my tree that I'm standing in. And this big buck's just watching them the whole time. He's like, what are y'all doing over there? And then they smell me, but they don't spook. They just go to doing hog grunting, snorting noises for forever.
Nasty.
Just
salty, marshy, nasty.
They're nasty, dude.
Ugh.
They make me mad. Actually, one of those was like a really pretty, like reddish color.
Yeah, that was
hog.
a cool pig.
Yeah. And I'm not above shooting a pig, but whenever there's a giant buck at 60 yards, I'm not messing with these pigs.
No.
Anyways, that buck finally ended up tucking his tail and kind of just moving out, which is not a good sight. When you see a mature buck do anything except act like a normal mature buck, it's a bad deal.
Yeah.
So me and the pigs finish out the night there. And then we proceed on to, you send me BBD like right at dark pretty much. You know, it's time to get down. I was like, sweet, I'm packing up. And so we go and do our thing and have that whole fun time. Got a celebration meal. Got to eat duplex cookies, and we're still eating duplex cookies, I think. But so from there on, we got your buck taken care of, and the rest of the hunt was about trying to get me a deer. We had a date set that we were gonna pull the plug and go to Kansas. And at this point in time, I want to kill a deer. Don't get me wrong, but like we knew that if one of us killed a deer on this trip, that would be success. So I was pretty elated either way. But, you know, I always like to kill deer, and it's good for us. And at that point in time, it's like, Tyler gets to be in the tree with me. We get to do the cameraman thing.
Yeah.
So we did that a little bit. We hunted a morning, right, and didn't see a ton. And then we hunted an evening and
could have killed.
Had the toughest pass, dude. And we had deer all over us for probably an hour that evening. There was, I think there was there was 2 does in the buck, right? And then we saw some more deer, too, out running around. But, dude, we see these two does kind of get up from their beds quite a ways off, and they're heading our way, kind of, and they're coming right to us because we are in the persimmons, right where we're sitting. That was a good tree, man. That was a real good spot.
That was.
And then, like, out from behind the brush, you see antlers, and you're like, oh! And it's like a 200 yards, and you can tell it's a pretty decent buck. And then I put my binos on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this deer, he's 3-year-old, like, just, just stereotypical 3-year-old body for a Texas deer. And he is just so close to not being the 13 or whatever, the ear width thing that everybody goes by, right? Yeah. Like, he's so close to not being that I have to make the decision when he's pretty far out there because I know I'm going to let myself shoot him if he gets any closer. Yeah. And after looking at footage, this deer probably would have been all right. Mm-hmm. But that rule is set up not so that 13-inch deer survive, right? Antler restriction deer make it. That's set up so that 3-year-olds become 4-year-olds. That's really why that rule's out there. Do I agree with it? I talked about this in an interview and the thing. Like, I don't know if I agree with it or not. It's a very complicated situation for a lot of reasons, but in that situation, that's the deer that is supposed to get the pass on that. That way he gets to be a giant next year. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we let him do for
Dude, how many
20
times
minutes.
did we say, should I or shouldn't I?
Oh, man. And
dude, how long was he in our lives?
Dude, I guarantee you I could have shot him for a 20-minute period. Yeah. Because it was good in daylight
and
whenever he came in.
And it took him a while to get to shooting range. Like, we got to watch him come from quite a ways, slowly, kind of like my deer the night before or whatever. And, dude, I'm telling you, the whole time it was like, and you're asking me, and I'm like...
It's a bad position to put you in. I'm sorry, no, it's fine. But we got to do it.
I promise you I would do it to you, too. But, like, I hate to be this guy, too. I kept saying it's up to you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know either.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, we talked about this. We think that there was probably a half-inch in there, that he was going to make it by a half-inch, at around a half-inch to an inch. And that was just too close. That's too close. A half an inch, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's just too much. Or too close. So we, I just was not able to help you at all. If he'd have been, a few inches, and I mean, there was no doubt, I would have been like, I think you're good, but you make the call. But, dude, it was just so close that I just was not going to be, I did not want to be the guy. I'm not usually that guy either. Like, a lot of guys... we have some friends like this that are just like, they're going to let you make the decision no matter what because they don't want to be responsible for it. And I'm like, oh, you're my friend. Like, it's okay, Yeah. But I'm not usually that guy. Like, I'll try to help you out. But in this case, it was so close, man.
Well, we have put ourselves in this position to where we put what we do out on YouTube or whatever, So, like, if you're a guy who doesn't film your hunts, you shoot a deer that's 12 7/8. Like, unless you really feel like self-reporting yourself, you might can get away with it. I'm not saying do it by any means, but, like, that's a mistake that can happen. If you're shooting an 8-inch wide deer, you're breaking the law on purpose. Like, that's a different deal. Don't do that. But, if we put that hunt on YouTube and, there's guys out there, especially game wardens and stuff, that are pretty good at judging this stuff.
And they have the authority to hunt you down.
Exactly. And come to your house.
Yeah. So let me see the footage. Let me see the SD cards.
Ain't worth it, especially for us. Yeah. And just in general, I just want to do what's right. You know. So that was the right thing to do. And he came in plenty of shooting light, and then stuck around for probably 20 minutes. We stayed in the tree 15 minutes longer than we needed to because he was just right below us. And another little buck came in. And, like, this deer stops. He's eating persimmons, maybe rubbing on a tree. And then he stops what he's doing and comes over and postures up to this little 1-year-old and, like, does a little quiet snort wheeze and runs him off. Or doesn't run him off. He just showed that he was the dominant deer.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he's, like, made a scrape right there. Yeah. And I think you got all this on footage. I couldn't see the scrape, and I could just hear it because it's directly behind me.
I've got it. But it's going to come out. The footage is going to come out soon.
I'm excited. Yeah. That's going to be cool. But that was actually a real fun hunt, even though I didn't get to shoot that deer. And then now I look at the footage of that, especially, I didn't put the X in,
like
especially like when he comes through the persimmons the first time, and you adjust the exposure up a little bit, you know, or the ISO or whatever it was, and I was like, that's a pretty big deer.
Yeah, I know, dude. Like he's not your ET8, you know. Like he's got some heavy.
He's like a pushing a Pope and Young type 8-point type deer, you know. Might break 120.
Solid G2, solid frame, good main beams, heavy, decent brows, you know, decent G3s, like all around just like a solid 3-year-old deer. I mean, something that we would have been very happy to take a ride in the back of the truck.
Absolutely. If that deer showed up in South Dakota where there's no regulations, ripshaw.
Yeah, dude.
But alas, didn't happen. So that's that for that evening. The next morning's our deadline for when we're wanting to go make the long haul up to Kansas. So we decided to do an all or nothing type hunt that ended up almost nothing. So we'd been seeing deer move around quite a bit in this one little thicket area that we assumed was kind of bedding, and probably was. But when we went in and hunted it that morning, just wasn't the morning. I actually saw that buck again. I felt like I could have grunted him in and shot him that day too. He was like at 60 yards, pushing the same does, I think. And that's really about all we saw until pigs came in, kind of right at end of shooting light, and I decided to just take a little bit of frustration out on these hogs and shot the tiniest hog you've ever seen, and not the place I thought it was. Man,
so
black
funny.
hogs, it's crazy how camouflaged they are in yellow grass.
Yeah,
because they just look like the shadow,
dude.
And I'm trying to, this pig's small, so it's kind of hard to pick him out down there, and I've got him, I'm drawn back. This is all, you know, you got pretty good over-shoulder footage of this stuff, but I can see his front shoulder take a step forward, and then, if I remember right, I pull my eye off the peep to make sure I'm looking, like make sure I know what I'm doing, and put my eye back in the peep, and I'm like, oh yeah, click, and rip this pig, and he runs off and like dies like 40 yards away. Pigs, you like a lot of times they'll squeal until they die, so you know exactly where they are. Well, we all get down. I think we tore our stand down before we did that. When we go over there,
I was a little confused at the time.
Tyler has better to look at it. Yeah, he's got a lot closer view of this pig than I do. Well, we go over there, and I'm like, that pig's ear's cut. And I start looking. I hit this hog, like almost squared him up in the skull. He had turned like 90 degrees in that time that I'd pulled my eye off the peep, and I missed it, and I thought I was just shooting him right in the crease, and sure enough, I hit him like kind of a frontal type thing in front of the collarbone. And you cut his head, and then went in and exited right out the bottom. I mean, ripped him. He's dead as dead gets, but it was just like a crazy thing. It's like, man, I was so sure of where I was shooting at that pig. It was weird, man.
I thought you were head shooting him when I was shooting. I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah. Well, I do think if it was a bigger pig, I would have known that what I was doing. But
we were trying to get one to take home to eat or whatever, is why you were shooting a small one, right? And then also there was, dude, it's hard through a camera too, like to figure out. We were like trying to coordinate which pig do we shoot.
Oh yeah,
and they were in these little
everywhere.
They were in these little gaps, and the gaps are just shadows, you know. And it's just like, man, that was the toughest film job I've ever done. I think, dude, for
That's
sure.
Funny, yeah. But that was kind of fun. And then that we got shot that hog, and then packed up and kind of made the somber walk back to the truck of the got to leave this place type thing, and which I was fine with. And then
got one more good look.
Yeah. So we're walking out. I can almost see the truck, and then Tyler and I, there comes a point when you're walking out of the woods, a lot of times on public land at least, where you go from like sneak mode to like, it's just relax and walk, which we didn't really have a reason to not there because we were done hunting, but I don't know, it's just the way you are. It's like when we go, like if we went outside right now, I'd talk quieter than I am in here. It's just what you do when you're a hunter, you know. You're like, oh man, the wind's on my neck. Oh, it doesn't matter in the yard, you know. But anyways, we had then gone into the joke around and mess around phase, and all of a sudden, up jumps a deer at like 30 yards. It's the big 6-point from a couple nights ago. Literally had bedded for the day, like 200 yards from the truck. And runs off into the bushes.
Yeah. We didn't stand a chance at him that morning.
Not a chance. We would have seen him if we were sitting in the truck.
Yep.
Guarantee you.
Yep.
And just not. Who knows, man? Big deer are weird. But we learned a little something about like what a deer would bed in. You know, there's quite a bit of brush and stuff around there, but that deer chose to bed like out in the grass. But we walked up and kind of found where we thought his bed was, and it was a spot that was going to be shaded for probably most of the day, right up next to this big old grass clump. Mm-hmm. I guess it makes sense. But what drives me nuts is when you figure something out like that, it doesn't help you; it just hurts you because then you're like, crap, dude, they're going to bed in more places than you think they would.
Yeah.
You know, you're not like crossing stuff off the list, you're adding stuff to the list.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder that way.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
It is, man. You know, and speaking of like eliminating ground or adding potential spots like that, you know, this trip kind of was made a lot easier through our use of OnX. I mean, just to be frank, and being able to, because these are places you can look up all these different places on the internet and that kind of thing. But having OnX is pretty nifty to be able to go, okay, here's our road trip. Here's the big loop we want to make. Maybe let's look at this, and this, because here are the blue or whatever areas that you can see on the map. It makes it so easy. And then once you get there, man, just being able to, you know, for me, and both of us really, but you know, like just in the instance of being able to shoot that deer, like being able to look at the map while I'm sitting in a tree is like an important thing for me. Like
being able to share waypoints between each other while we're in the tree, like saying like, hey man, I'm thinking about moving here for the evening. What do you think? That sort of thing is huge.
Yeah, because you can see it, and you can see it from above on the aerial, and then you can see it in person as well. And so like most of the time when I'm sitting in a tree stand, and it's not like deer going everywhere, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing the next hunt because I need to know if I'm going to pull all my stuff or not. And, you know, and hopefully it'll help me make a decision that will put me in a good position. So it's a big help for us to have OnX for sure, man.
Absolutely. And as y'all know, we work with OnX a good bit because we like those dudes over there. We had Jared on the podcast here a while back, and he's been slaying deer all over the world. But we have just recently hit a giant milestone for us, 10,000 YouTube subscribers. So thank y'all very much. It's pretty cool. I mean, it feels like we accomplished it. But even my wife was like, wow, y'all have 10,000 subscribers? That's a big deal,
She's
dude.
like, last time I looked, there was like 800.
That's right. That's right. You know, she's watching some makeup tutorial person that has 2.7 million. You know, like, wow, 10,000. Good job, guys. But with that, we have got a big giveaway coming up. Lots of prizes are going to be involved with this thing. Yeah, big one. 2XL only. But for real, we're going to do like one big grand prize, and this is a real deal. Like, you're going to come away with like probably $1,000 worth of stuff or more if you win the grand prize. And then we're going to have some other like giveaways that go along with it too. Just not grand, but still prizes.
Yeah,
good prizes. But every prize is going to include an OnX Elite membership, which means you get all 50 states for 1 year. All layers. So public land, all that stuff.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Dude, like, that's the thing that we use.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, you can be sitting in Iowa/Illinois
same
and
thing,
scouting out, you know, Wisconsin or something, you know, like straight up. It's the elite membership that's what you need if you get OnX and you want to go out of state and hunt.
You'll become an elite hunter because of it.
Absolutely. A big hunter too. Be ready for that, guys. We don't really have all the details of that worked out. We're going to get that within the next week because we hit the 10,000 mark a little quicker than we thought we were going to. Yeah. So thank y'all very much for the support. And these giveaways are going to be our way of saying thanks. You know, it's not just like, how can we just get more subscribers? But we really do. We're very appreciative of that. Y'all help us out a bunch, and we're thankful for all the comments, likes, and shares, and everything that you've given us. So be looking for that in the future.
And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube because that is the for sure way to be entered into this thing.
Absolutely.
There's you have to be a YouTube subscriber. So
yeah, that'll be the first thing in the description down there is our YouTube channel. If you're not yet, go do it. That way you can win this stuff. But with that being said, we pulled the plug on Texas. Made the long haul up to Kansas.
Got some Whataburger on the way.
Got some Whataburger.
And I couldn't taste it.
Tyler starts showing some signs, if you know what I'm saying. And dadgummit, if it wasn't a tough couple days.
Yep.
This section of the podcast is going to be pretty short, I think, because we hardly even saw any deer.
It's the worst run I've ever seen in Kansas.
And the best dates.
Yeah.
November 7th is Bill Winky's favorite day. And Bill Winky has hunted a lot of deer.
Yep.
You and Anthony both killed deer on November 7th last year.
One in Kansas, too. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anthony's.
No dead deer.
No deer. No live deer.
You saw a couple because you were out. So we have permission, and we got public up there. We hunt both places. I went and hunted the permission place because we knew there's going to be some big deer over there. And kind of live or die, and I almost died because I had some sits where I didn't even see deer, that ain't something that happens in Kansas very often. Mm-hmm. You drove around, saw some deer. Mm-hmm. You actually spotted a big deer one time, and then that got messed up by some other hunters, which, whatever. I'm not going to get too detailed about this deal. But if you're out hunting our public land, way to go, because you're hopefully in a pretty good spot, and I hope you continue to do that. If you mess it up for another reason, then it kind of drives me crazy, but we'll just leave it at that.
Not every shot you shoot, I think we've proved, is a great shot.
Yeah.
But I think you do fill in the gaps with your mind like you talked about. Mm-hmm. I think you got to be a little bit closer to reality.
You do.
Than these guys might have been.
That's right, man. There's a difference in a 116 and 116 for sure.
And there's also a difference in a little back and through the back quarter, back hind quarter.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways.
But, I know it happens. We were a little bit confused talking to these guys about what's going on. And because of it, I think it made it difficult for us to shoot some of the big deer that we had scouted out on this property.
So I think about right there is kind of when the Rona hit. It's kind of that day, pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe it was those clowns.
That might have been it, man. Standing in the wrong direction downwind,
I know it. But so Tyler started feeling pretty sick. I hunted another day, pretty much. You felt sick again, and got word that your wife had the Rona at the house. I
had fever 2 nights in Kansas in a row. Didn't hunt in the mornings.
And bad hunts are happening, and we just decided it's time to come home. Yeah. And came home a day early, which I didn't even get rewarded for because my wife thought that was the day we were coming home anyway.
Dang.
But came home to a Rona wife. I didn't get tested because I assumed I had it because you ended up getting tested. She got tested. I had a little bit of symptoms, not bad, but, I definitely had the stuffy nose and all that kind of stuff.
People have talked about how bad the testing is. It wasn't that bad to me.
Did you get the deep Q-tip or did you get the nostril Q-tip?
I mean, I suppose I've always heard it's all just deep Q-tip in your nostril.
Yeah.
They don't just swab your nostril.
Well, the
which is weird because a mask,
Yeah, how about that?
It's like you got to get in your brain to get the disease, but.
Sure. And you got to quarantine if you get the virus, but masks work. So if I have it, can I just go wear a mask at the grocery store?
Should be able to.
Right?
I think so.
Anyways, they did a nasal swab on Stone. That's how they tested his. I don't know.
That's good.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. But anyways, that brought us home early, and honestly, it was a long trip, so I didn't mind it too much. But I told Tyler while we were sitting there deliberating this, I was like, dude, I don't quit very easy when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I felt a little defeated.
I know.
I felt a little bit defeated leaving, but it was time.
But you're going back soon.
Yeah, I'm probably going back tomorrow. That's my plan. If we can get everything in line.
I'm crossing my fingers that I'm going with you.
I would like for that to happen. Because the way you go with me is to go kill a good deer.
Yeah, I've been hunting a pretty decent buck.
Yeah.
Here, kind of local or whatever, in the ETX, and I don't know. It's kind of I would pack up in a heartbeat and go to Kansas. If just not shooting this deer, and go to Kansas. Except for we don't really have a whole lot of big deer on camera in Kansas. So we've got a couple that are pretty good. But, and they're in one spot. And so it's like, man, it probably probably should let you hunt that spot, and I stay here. I got a decent buck to hunt, so I'm going to hunt him. And I had a couple of close calls with him at this point.
And I told you that's like, do it.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't,
I want to go so bad, though, because it's so fun, man. It's a good time of year.
You're about to go shoot him, so.
I hope so. I hope so. What time is it? Is it time for me to shoot him?
It's almost time for you to shoot a deer, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, guys, that's the story of our big rut hunt. We've been doing quite a bit of hunting around the house that we'll have some video from. But if you haven't, go subscribe on YouTube, like we said, so you can see that big giant Texas public land buck that Tyler shot that are released November 19th. It's this evening if we get out today. If not, it was yesterday, so it's on YouTube either way. But anyways, thank y'all for listening and following along. Wish us luck. I hope you have some good luck, too. I hope you've already had luck. And honestly, there's been a lot of deer killed for the weather that we've had, man.
I know, man.
Texas in particular has had some pretty good bucks go down, which is kind of surprising because I feel like they aren't there. So maybe I'm not as good a hunter as what I thought it was. But no, I don't know. It's been a weird November, guys. I don't know if there's going to be a warmer one ever. And then you know how it's going to be. December 18th is just going to be freaking Arctic blast freeze fest or something, But yeah, well that happened in October for most everybody. Like where we went in South Dakota, there's 2 foot of snow in October, and then now it's sunny and nice there. So
sunny and 75.
Whatever. But anyways, I hope y'all are getting out in it no matter what the temps are. If you haven't killed a deer yet, our good buddy Jake over at Exodus posted a thing yesterday. He's been kind of having a little bit of difficulties this season. And he was like, you know what? I can't remember what his exact phrasing was, but he's pretty much like, dude, their deer are still on their feet, running around doing deer stuff. It doesn't matter. It's November. Let's go hunt. That's kind of how I feel, too.
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, Jake's issue, I think, is that he lives in the biggest deer country in the whole world, and when you do that, you've got people trying to shoot big deer around you, and shooting them. So
that's
people with more money than you too. So
yeah, he's gonna be mad at you for saying that.
Well,
Jake likes to say there's no deer where he lives.
Nah, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I killed a big deer in that state, sir. So they live there. I'll say that
they do for sure.
Yeah, no, he's hunting hard though, man. He's after it. He mentioned the 1% chance thing yesterday, and it's just funny because that's how I feel pretty much every time I go out.
That's exactly, dude.
But you make a good point, man. Like if you can sit, 100 sits, not necessarily in 1 year, but if you sit 100 sits, like you probably going to get it done.
That's right. That's not really how statistics work.
No, it's not.
But one of my favorite preachers, his name's Chuck Missler. He was a physicist and in his professional career, but he's been a preacher for a long time too. He passed away a few years back, but Chuck, one of his famous sayings is, if you torture the data long enough, it will confess. That's what he says a lot. And that's kind of how I feel about that. It's like, if you look at it the right way, or the wrong way, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too long.
Just hunt, man.
That's it.
Just go hunt.
Man, what a novel concept, just hunt. Well, let's do it, guys. Thank y'all so much, and be sure and subscribe on YouTube, and remember, this is your element.
Liberty.